last one of our virtual volunteer conference that we've been holding over the course of this week. Arguably, I could say that we've kept the best till last. Let's hope that's the case. I look forward to you listening to what we as trustees do and also learning a little bit more about us. Do welcome your questions. So if you do have any questions as we're moving through, do please put them into the chat and we'll pick up on them later. We will have a question and answer session later in the session. So if you're joining in person, it's really great to have you on. If you're listening in to this later on the recording, then many thanks for actually doing that. I hope you enjoy it and get some useful information out of it. So without further ado, I will ask Donovan to move to the next slide. So meet the trustees. So what are we planning to do today is explain why we have trustees in the first place, to actually go through what we as trustees have as our responsibilities and what our guiding principles are with regard to the work that we do for the institution, and then run through one by one who our current trustees are. So you have an opportunity to get to know us a little bit better, and you can actually sort of then ask us questions with regards to the activities that we do. So let's make a start with the next slide and try and answer the question, why do we have trustees? So if you're not already aware, we are a charity as an institution. We're a registered charity both with the Charity Commission of England and Wales as well as with the Office of the Scottish Charity Regulator. That's because we have activities within those jurisdictions. And as an institution, we are governed by the Trustee Board. So the Trustee Board comprises of members of the institution who are elected to office by the corporate and associate members of the institution through an annual election process. And I'm sure that some of you on the call today will have actually taken part in that over the years. You've voted and you've selected who you consider to be the most appropriate people to take over the roles of trustees. So the trustees themselves, we are a body currently of 13 strong. We meet regularly, typically 8 times per annum. Those are the formal meetings, although we do tend to have ad hoc exceptional meetings more frequently than that as required. And we meet in order to govern the business of the institution. It is our responsibility as trustees to ensure that the institution's activities are being correctly managed and we're heading in the right direction as an institution. And just to say that trustees are expected to attend most, if not all, of our board meetings. So it is quite a responsibility to be a trustee of the institution. Make yourself available to attend those meetings as well as make yourself available for the other activities that trustees do. So the people that sit actually on the Trustee Board as trustees, we have myself acting as the chair of the Trustee Board. I hold that position for the duration of the term of office that I am in. So when I took over in May of this year, I took over the chair of the Trustee Board from Peter Flynn, who was our previous past president, and I will hold that position until next May, when I will hand over to Giles Hartill as the next president of the institution. We also have 2 deputy presidents. Those 2 deputy presidents are new positions on the Trustee Board based on the changes we made to the Trustee Board regulations earlier this year. Previously, we had a president-elect. That was the position I had last year, and that gave the incoming president a 12-month period of preparation. We've extended it to 2 deputy presidents so that then there is a 24-month preparation period, just to give the incoming president a longer period of opportunity to prepare themselves for the presidential term. We have 4 vice presidents, one of whom is an international vice president. They are also expected to chair and serve on our key boards, as are the 2 deputy presidents, I should say. represent the president whenever required, and just to head various studies, special studies that we may run occasionally. We then have, in addition, 5 ordinary members. They are also expected to serve on various boards, and it's customary for trustees to attend council meetings as observers. I'm actually a member of council, but all the other trustees attend as observers. So if you could move to the next slide, please, Donovan. So our guiding principles. Well, we are governed by the recommendation documents that are issued by the Charity Commission. The main one that covers trustee responsibility is CC3, so the essential trustee. And that actually identifies 6 main areas of responsibility that trustees have. So ensuring the charity is carrying out its purpose for the public benefit, complying with the governance documents that we have, acting in the best interests of the charity, ensuring that our charity is accountable, managing our charity's resources responsibly, and then acting with reasonable care and skill. So the next slide. Oh, just by the way, if you want to download a copy of that, if you're interested, it's quite an interesting document. All of these are available on the Charity Commission website. There's a whole host of guideline documents that are open source, and you can just download and have a look at more information. So we have to effectively take into account the Charity Commission guidance in terms of our duties and behaviours. We also need to know critically about other areas. So in fact, ensuring that we manage conflicts of interest, for example, and there's a guidance for that in terms of what charity trustees should do. I'm not going to go through all of the points that are on there, but you can see some of the points that are identified. The next slide, please, Donovan. Culture and behaviours, that's a critical area for us as trustees, and we need to, as trustees, promote a core culture and behaviours as effectively described in our annual operating plan. And those include, but are not limited to, for example, respect for others, listening and communicating, constructively, acting with integrity, striving for continuous improvement, and committing to adding value. So that's the framework that we as trustees work within. If the next slide, please, Donovan. So I've explained to you the Trustee Board regulations we have in terms of roles. Now you actually get to see who actually sits in those personally. So for the period of my presidential term from 25th of May through the 24th of May next year, I will be the president and also the chair of the Trustee Board. The 2 deputy presidents who unfortunately are not able to join us today due to other commitments are Giles and Clive. Then the 3 vice presidents plus the international vice president, making the 4 in total. Heather, Richard, Helena, and Vijay. We have then 3 ordinary members plus an international ordinary member. Chris, Bridget, David, and Graham. And then we have an ordinary member under 30, Ross, who's also joined us. So I think Heather has unfortunately also had to give her apologies, but the rest of the trustees are on the board, are on the call today, rather. And we'll listen to them introduce themselves very soon. Just a final point on the trustees. I wanted to say that a recent change in the Trustee Board regulations was to allow the co-opting of trustees in areas that the Trustee Board requires, feels that they require them in. So there aren't actually any currently on the board, but we have recognised that there is a need for a trustee, the co-opted trustee for values and behaviours, and NOMCO, the nominations committee, is in the process of currently processing a nomination for that particular role. Good. Then I'm going to suggest that we hand over to the trustees one by one. I'm going to start with Helena because she's got a bit of a deadline in 20 minutes time. So I'm going to start with you, Helena, so you have an opportunity to jump off the call. But I'm sure you won't need 20 minutes. I think 5 minutes should suffice. But we will start with you anyway. So if I can hand over to Helena, and Helena, so maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Phil. And I promise I won't take up the full 20 minutes.
Thank you.
So I'm Helena Rivers. I have been an ordinary trustee for 5 years, and then this year I have taken on the role of vice president. The other roles that I also hold within the institution are I'm the chair of the real estate strategy group, and I'm vice chair of the diversity and inclusion committee. In my day job, I work for AECOM. For those of you who aren't familiar with AECOM, we are a global consultancy working in infrastructure and the built environment, headquarters in the US, but with around 7,000 employees based in the UK. And my role is I head up for the Europe part of the buildings business, our estate decarbonisation offer. So it's working on existing buildings throughout Europe, supporting them on their decarbonisation journey, both in the public and private sectors. Sometimes very specific solutions, particularly where we've had a great deal of government funding recently in the UK, support the decarbonisation of buildings, but also looking at overarching trajectories, how organisations can support the decarbonisation commitments which were made in the Paris agreements, and with the decarbonisation of grids, how that will impact different building performances. Another very closely related role I hold is for well, it was Prince Charles's Sustainable Markets Initiative, and I don't know actually whether it's now King Charles's or whether somebody else is taking it on. But anyway, for the Sustainable Markets Initiative, then for the Buildings Task Force, I am chairing the Partnerships and Incentives Working Group, looking at collectively from a CEO-driven approach how we can drive down operational carbon in our built estates. So as you can see, I do a lot of work around the journey to net zero, but with that operational buildings twist to it. I was inspired to join the Trustee Board around supporting the institution in our journey around diversity and inclusion. I had not previously been very actively engaged in the institution, and I didn't see it as being a very diverse organisation, and I wanted to do my best to influence that, and so to support more of our members from different backgrounds to feel included within the institution. Over the time I've sat on the Trustee Board, we've made enormous success in this area with our diversity and inclusion strategy being launched last year, and with really active support in this space from the institution. So I'm really pleased around that. I think the greatest challenge that I feel that we're facing at the moment as trustees is finding the right solution for our building that meets the needs of the membership, will have the support of membership, and is appropriate given the financial constraints and charitable aims that we're all trying to achieve. And a fun fact about myself, so I have Ukrainians living with me at the moment through the Homes for Ukraine initiative, and to try and help them feel welcome, I've been trying to learn Ukrainian, but I have to say without a huge amount of success.
Oh, I'm impressed. So yeah, we won't ask you to give a few words in Ukrainian, but I'm sure that they are really appreciative of you making the effort to learn their language. And having learnt a little bit of Russian, and I know that your Ukrainian is very similar at school, I realise it's not an easy language to learn. So
No, it's really not.
yeah, a lot of respect, a lot of respect. So Helena, many thanks for the intro there. So maybe I could move on to Richard, if that's okay. So
yep.
Richard, could you
Okay.
introduce yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, morning all. So Richard Judge, also a Vice President of the Trustee Board. My role there, alongside being a trustee, I chair our commercial subsidiaries, so the board of our subsidiaries, and I'm also sit on Finance Board, plus all the other things that trustees get up to. So there's quite a lot which sort of goes on. It seems to fill a lot of time. Previously, I was Chief Executive of various organisations in government and private sector for about 15 years, mainly in the high value science technology areas around rail, environment, energy, that sort of area. And my last role as a Chief Executive was at Health and Safety Executive in the UK. What I'm doing now is actually sort of building on that background. I decided to just do lots of things which were interesting, as opposed to sort of being sort of tied up just in one commitment as a CEO. So I do independent reviews. An example of that, I led a review of governance for the restoration of a Palace Westminster. So that's UK parliamentary buildings, and quite relevant to our own restoration works here. I also done quite a lot of research over recent years into the safety of complex systems. So really just recognizing the complexity, I think, of the changes which are happening in the world around us, the uncertainty that brings, that everything's getting much more interconnected. So you sort of get the idea and how that works and what the implications of that might be for safety. And I think then, that probably takes me at one of the things which inspires me about the institution, and actually the amazing people which we meet, many of which actually are trustees as well. And, that's always a sort of pleasure. Is how do you get some of that brilliant engineer actually applied? How do you get that perspective, the innovation put into place and used for social good? And I think if you sort of take that, I'd almost pick up on a different element of the diversity theme, which is actually how do you bring the different skills, multidisciplinary skills, different perspectives, different views, different ideas, both in engineering and also beyond. So the social scientists, the artists, everybody else, how do you bring all of that together to make it work and to create? And I think that's always a lot of fun when you actually get there. But also one of the real strengths of the institution is that ability to bring people together. And I think, if you want a fun fact about myself, I don't normally do fun facts. So it's maybe it's just one, and I certainly don't speak Ukrainian. I tried Dutch once, and that's hard enough. But when I was a baby, I was born very prematurely. I was about 2 pounds, if you can imagine that sort of weight. So it's a bag of sugar, about a kilo. You might not guess it now, but if you take that and actually, I probably owe for subsequent years and all I do now to some amazing engineering as well as the medical staff right back at the start many years ago. So a word of thanks to all of the engineers at that time who made it happen. That's me.
Wonderful, Richard, and yeah, my brother was also born many months premature, and he wouldn't have survived had it not been for the amazing medical engineering that was available at the time. So yes, that's definitely, we'll fly the flag for the NHS and the medical staff there. Great.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah, thanks very much, Richard, for sharing that. Can I see that there's questions coming in on the chat, which is brilliant, and I think there was one in from Christopher. So many thanks for that, which Helen has answered. So I am going to move on to VJ now, but keep your questions coming, and we'll answer them as they come in, and pick them up later if we get a chance as well. VJ, can I hand over to you, please, for you to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Phil. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming across loud and
good.
clear. We hear you fine.
Okay, good. I am the International Vice President on the Trustee Board, and the governance board that I chair is the Audit and Risk Committee. And in addition to that, I'm a member of the ISB, registered with many of our learned society groups and so on. My primary motivation as a trustee is giving back to the institution. And it's an institution and learned society that has supported my learning for about 50 years. I have skills in finance, institutional structures, appraising and managing risks, corporate planning. And I must say that my skills are being put to good use by the institution, and that gives me a great deal of satisfaction. It's not an easy function being a trustee effectively because one has to provide a lot of volunteer time to help resolve whatever issue arises, irrespective of whether the pandemic is on or whether we are working remotely. We still have to provide a lot of time. We live in a very sort of changing world, and to survive the buffets of managing our risks and finances, IMechE needs agility in adapting to changes fast while maintaining its focus on delivering our charter. My objective is to reduce inertia that is inherent in any large organization so that there are no delays to make the change, or less delays than uh, occur at most when most changes are attempted. IMechE has got some very good tools. It is a learned society. It has a plethora of skills, staff support, and volunteers with bristling with ideas. I also hope they have lots of time. We seek to enhance our role with diversity and inclusion, D&I. The concept for the D is very simple. There should be no discrimination against persons owing to prejudices that one may have. And a prejudice should not prevent us from identifying a person's worth, irrespective of the particular characteristics that they may or may not have. Great progress has been made in the D of D&I in the last few years, particularly through the nomination committee's processes and the D&I committee's work. The I is the more difficult thing to do because the I is the inclusion that makes a diverse mix work. And the main tool that we need to use is our commitment to values and behavior in a very emphatic manner, akin to perhaps at a stretch the larger scale systemic attempt we are all making as countries to evolve a liberal democratic world. Now, what are the practical ways forward which I, as a trustee, could and try to help IMechE with? I think, firstly, we must become institutionally strong. And then, secondly, we must enhance our membership because that is our main source of income. And we could try to enhance our membership in sort of three subroutes. One is that we must make sure that the existing way in which we have a twin membership route with NC registration and IMechE membership going together isn't given up because it's been stable for 10 years. So we mustn't give up that core. At the same time, we must evolve additional paths for women engineers, bachelor degree associates, and others, and encourage them to become senior engineers in the institution with or without registration. We also need to have our international footprint growing. And that is quite a complex task because we have to understand country structures and respect them. And in all this, we need to provide continuous professional development for every level of member in engineering practice. And that has got nothing to do with engineering registration. I always make the analogy of doctors. Would you go to see a GP who last looked at a medical book in 1980? You wouldn't. You'd want them to have current knowledge. So we must be current in engineering at any and every level that we have members for. And I would like to burnish our learned society status and stature, and maybe we should draw a page from some of the other societies in our knowledge, and we should have a much greater system of publishing papers online as preprints, which are not yet reviewed, but can be withdrawn if they are found to be gibberish. I want to say that when IMechE was first formed, if a member did not present a paper, then he got fined £1. And £1 was a lot of money 175 years ago. So I think this is a very good going back to our roots sort of idea. And I hope I can help formulate the way in which we could try and develop. After all, even nature produces preprints which have not yet been peer reviewed. I think that my past activities are of, if they are of interest to anybody, they're already available on the website. So with that, Phil, I'll cease and pass on to somebody else.
Well, Vijay, before you move on, just maybe a quick fun fact about yourself, if you wish to share it. I know you on all the trustee boards you regularly, and I know you don't have the issue anymore, but you had a train occasionally sounding in the background, which would tend to indicate to me that you actually are stationed quite close to a railway line. So maybe you tell us the fun facts about whereabouts you're based in India.
Okay, I'm based in Bangalore, which is a very nice city in India, where human activity has not yet destroyed the weather, in the sense that it rains here 200 days a year. And when the rest of India is sweltering at about 45 or 50 degrees, we are at a nice and cool and livable 25 in the daytime and 20-ish at night. But we try and keep that quiet, because otherwise it'd be flooded with people who we consider foreigners.
I'd keep that secret to yourself if I were you. And
Yeah.
having been to Delhi in the height of the summer, I sympathise. It's not the most comfortable of environments to work with it. Vijay, many thanks. Let's move on to the next of our trustees, and I'm going to suggest we go to Chris Chong in Hong Kong. So Chris, did you want to say a few words about yourself?
Okay, thank you, Phil. I'm Chris Chong from Hong Kong. I was recently appointed in 9th of September this year as a casual vacancy ordinary member in this trustee board. A little bit background about myself. I have 29 years experience in the energy sectors. I held director positions since 2008 in Veolia's subsidiaries in Asia, in charge of business development and also operations. I'm currently managing director of a subsidiary of Veolia in Hong Kong, and I'm now in charge of district energy and also mission critical energy facilities in Hong Kong. And also, I was a fellow of IMechE in 2011, but many years before this, I am in fact a chartered financial analyst, CFA, in 2001. I first started my IMechE volunteer work in Hong Kong since 2012, about 10 years. And I'm currently the chairman of IMechE Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, maybe people don't know, we have about 3,600 members in Hong Kong. And I'm pleased to inform you, I'm a member that means IMechE and fellow member of IMechE, which means about 10% increase in membership in Hong Kong in the past 2 years. Thank you for my team for all the hard work to promote IMechE in Hong Kong. As I'm new to this trustee board, I hope with my background in business development, finance, and also managing companies in the past decades, I could volunteer myself, my expertise in this trustee board in a membership growth area that I like most, and also help on the finance side, scrutinize the account, and also to ensure the best interest of the members, and also spend some time on the governing issues as well. Some fun fact about myself: I like to play saxophone. I have nine of them in my home, and the oldest one is made in 1911, which is a bit younger than IMechE, but still old. So that's about myself. Thank you much.
Wow, Chris, yes, and 1911 is certainly, it's not as old as the institution, but it's still quite old. So having something that's 110 years old is quite impressive. So let's move on to Bridget. Bridget, can I hand over to you, please?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'm Bridget Eickhoff. I've been an ordinary member of the Trustee Board now for about a year and a half. I was elected in May 2021. I've got a long history with the IMechE, but primarily in the railway division. I spent my career in the rail industry, and I was encouraged as a young engineer to get involved in the local centre of the railway division, and I worked my way up doing a number of things with the railway division, including being chair in 2012, so that's a few years ago now. For many years now, well, since the beginning actually, I've been on the organising committee for the IMechE Railway Challenge, and I'll come back to that a bit later on. And I've also been on the steering group for the rail training that the IMechE offers. And as a trustee, I'm now attending the Regional Strategy Board, as something that I had very little involvement in earlier. That's been very interesting to understand how the regions part of the organisation is working. And recently I've led the scoping study that we've done into a potential review of the Royal Charter and bylaws. And one of the things we've picked up in that is the need to be very aware of the risk of unconscious bias. So we don't intend to be biased, but sometimes the way that we write things is biased unintentionally, and that's one of the things that we've been looking at there. In my day job, I work for an organisation called Rail Safety and Standards, actually on the infrastructure standards side, and that involves me in a lot of cross-industry groups and international standards committees. So I've got quite a lot of experience of working in committee structures, and RSSB is also a non-profit making member organisation. So I've got some experience in working through our members, but we have no authority to tell them what to do. So that's a very interesting dynamic when you have to learn how to influence rather than manage. What really interests me, I think, is the next generation. And that's why I said I'd come back to the Railway Challenge, and how we encourage future generations to take up engineering, stick with it, and develop through into the huge range of roles that are available to them. We're not very good at telling young people and their influencers just how broad the opportunities are in engineering. The Railway Challenge is an example of that. The young engineers who their apprentices, graduates and students mixed up get opportunities to do the engineering, but they also get opportunities to do the project planning, the team working, and all of those things which are really important parts of an engineering career. And the fun fact is that for the Railway Challenge, I get the chance to do something I have never done in my day job, which is be an operator and run trains, and it's great fun.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Bridget. I unfortunately missed the Railway Challenge this year, but I hear it was a really fun affair, and it's a great competition. There's some really excellent engineering on show there with all the teams that compete, as in all of the other challenges that we do. So definitely sort of call out there the excellent work that we do there on the challenges side. So I'm now going to move on to David. Look like you're on mute, so if you drop off mute, and then over to you.
Just trying to. Oh, there we go.
You're on.
You use Teams every day, and then you're completely incompetent at it. So my name's David Noel. Like Bridget, I started off on the railways, actually. I worked for British Rail back in 1983, and that's when I joined the institution. And I've been a member of the institution ever since. I subsequently left the railways and went into academia. I did a doctorate and then became a university lecturer at Oxford. And I'm currently professor at Imperial College in London, which I greatly enjoy. I've been an elected trustee since 2019. I was encouraged to stand actually by a former president who said, I think you've got some of the skills that might be useful for the institution. And actually, I've really enjoyed it. It's a great way of, I've found the institution is a great way of getting to know engineers in other roles that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise see, and that's been really good for me personally. In terms of what I've done as a trustee, lots of things, but Education and Skills Strategy Board I've been involved with since the beginning of my time on Trustee Board, I suppose naturally, but education's a real passion of mine. I'm also on the Technical Strategy Board now. I've been on the Real Estate Strategy Board and currently on the Building Working Group. So I'm trying to help us decide what to do about our headquarters, and it's a tricky problem. I've also been on Bridget's Royal Charter and Bylaws scoping group. So lots of things. Background experience, I've got experience obviously in education, but also in finance. I've sat on finance committees and so on, and investments, historic buildings. I was a member of the governing body of my Oxford College for 29 years and got involved in all sorts of interesting stuff there. Yeah, I mean, it strikes me how similar I am to Bridget, really. I mean, my kind of passion is young people and engineering. And, you know, I really like working in the university sector because you get these bright young people and you can kind of enthuse them about things. You can allow them to develop their skills and understanding. And they always ask the really challenging questions and, you know, it keeps you on your toes. Fun fact, still live in Oxford. I'm here in Oxford at the moment in my home office. When I'm in London, if I'm there 2 consecutive days, I actually stay on a narrowboat in Brentford, and it's great fun. So I'm down there with the narrowboaters. So that's me.
Wonderful, David. I'm looking forward to the opportunity one day to have a trustee board on board the narrowboat.
We should, yes.
It might be a bit tight in terms
of space, tight, yeah.
But we should try to do it, I think.
The problem with a narrowboat is that they are quite narrow, and so you sort of finish up all sitting in a line if you have a social event on them. But anyway, there we are. Yeah.
Yeah, we might end up being stacked one behind each other. Yes, absolutely. Great. Thanks very much, David. So can I pass over to Graham? And if Graham's on the line, I think he is. So if you are, Graham, if you could come off mute and maybe introduce yourself to us, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Graham Britton. I'm currently living in Portugal. I'm a fellow of the institution. I am a new trustee. I joined in July this year. I was appointed under the Casual Vacancy International, and I have been asked to be a member of the trustee member for the Qualifications and Membership Board, and I've attended one meeting for that. So as I'm new, I really haven't made a major contribution yet to the institution, but I'm looking forward to doing that. In terms of my professional experience, I'm a retired professor. I have been a professor in New Zealand, Singapore, Finland, and Malaysia. In my last position, and this is really important in terms of the skills I bring to the trustee board, I was the president and CEO of a private university that I started up in Malaysia. And this was on behalf of a multinational company that I belong to. So I learned a lot about the entrepreneurship skills. These are useful to bring to the trustee board. In terms of my volunteering experience, I was a panel interviewer for several years in the 90s, and I was the founding chairman of the IMechE Singapore branch. That was founded in 1997. And in later years, I returned to be chairman of the branch again to help them out when they couldn't find someone to fill the position. And I've also held treasurer several times to help the branch out. My last real involvement with the IMechE in terms of volunteering was in 2010, and that was during the time that I had taken over I was president and CEO of this private university, and I couldn't spend any time. The startup took all my efforts and all my time, so I sort of dropped away from the institution during those years up till this year. When I retired last year, and I knew I was moving to Portugal, I thought it might be a good opportunity for me to become involved with the institution again. I believed that I had some skills that would be useful to the institution. Like David, as a professor, I love being with young people. I love seeing them develop. The changes that you see when they first come into a university, and then when you see them leave, they're pretty critical years for young people, and the changes that occur are they can be very different. You see someone come in and they go out and they're almost quite a different person. They really do mature during that time, and it is a fun time to be involved with young people and help them grow and develop through that. So I'm hoping I can also contribute something there. In terms of the expertise I bring to the Trustee Board, my skills are in governance, risk management, and IT management. And so those are the areas I'm hoping that I can help and contribute to the institution. Fun fact. The one fact about me that most people find very interesting is I wrote my first computer program in 1970. Now, in those days, the way you entered data into a computer was through punch cards. And so what would happen is you would give your, you would put your, write your program out and put it into a center, and then someone would type it in with a keyboard, and then you get these punch cards, and then you'd have the punch cards in a box. And one of the things you had to be very careful about is you didn't drop the box, because if you did, all the punch cards fell on the ground, and then your program absolutely became scrambled. I mean, totally scrambled. And so one of the very critical things you had to do is, once you got your box of punch cards, is you had to get a pen and number them all the way through from 1 through, so that if you dropped them, you could actually get them back in sequence again. So that's all about me. Thank you.
Graham, yeah, so I think we've come a long way since then, and I'm sincerely glad that we've moved away from punch cards of processing of computer data, because it was a real pain. Great, thanks, Graham. So I'm going to move now to, apart from myself, and I will come in at the end, don't worry, you'll find out about me as well. I'm going to jump to Ross now, and Ross, if you could sort of say a few words about yourself, that would be great, thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. So yeah, following on from everyone, probably a few similarities, maybe a couple of differences. So I've been a Trustee Board member now since 2020, which was an interesting year to join. Plenty going on, which we all went through. And most of my focus within the Trustee Board is on the young members, so the link that we have with the Young Members Board, the values and behaviours work that we do, and sustainability. So the COP conference, which hopefully some of you got to last year, the COP26 conference that we held within the IMechE. Before being a Trustee Board member within the IMechE, it's something I've been involved with for most of my career, mainly supporting the young members' activities in the regions. At the time, it was the Yorkshire region, and then worked through and supported the Young Members Board directly as the energy representative. And the link there is to my day job. So my day job, I work at BP, which is a global energy company transitioning to what needs to be a lower carbon future. And that's kind of what inspired me originally to become an engineer. So climate change, global warming, it just seemed like such a simple challenge to solve. It was also the biggest challenge, and I thought, let's go get it. So it's definitely become a lot more complicated as I got into it in my career, but I think deep down it's still relatively simple enough at its core. But it is for sure the biggest challenge in my view that the world faces. So within BP, most of my time I've been working in refining and petrochemicals. So that's really the base, the engine, if you like, of the world and its supplies. And more recently, in the last couple of years, I've actually stepped away from that to do something different. I now support the leadership team at BP. So it's a really great opportunity to work with the CEO and the execs and move the company forward in a different direction. So we have a new ambition to be net zero, which is, you know, that sounds bonkers. An oil and gas company becoming net zero just doesn't quite seem, you'd be amazed at that a few years ago, but that is the direction that we're going, is the direction that a lot of companies need to do. And it's exciting. And we've got lots of people that want to join, which I think is incredibly fulfilling as well. Because that's one of the big things that links my day job and the work that we do with the IMechE is young people. And that's something that I think nearly every trustee board member has mentioned already, is there's this link with encouraging and inspiring the next generation. Because I think if we do, then the potential is massive. And if we don't, the risks are high. So outside of the IMechE, I also run something called the STEM Exchange, which is a very small mentoring program where every year we pair up people that are in industry or have STEM experience with young people that are getting towards the stage around 16 years and older, where they're thinking about what they want to do. And we try and match them up and encourage them and promote some of the ideas that actually you can have a career in STEM, especially for some of the people that may have thought, because of some misconceptions, that maybe they couldn't. So that's something that I think a lot of us are all passionate about. I know a lot of people on the call are as well. I think for my reasons for joining the IMechE and taking a position on the board, which is a huge privilege, by the way, and I'm very thankful of that. It is to do those two big things in my life. One is to help encourage young people to follow whatever dreams they have. Hopefully it's in line with engineering and STEM. And the other is around sustainability. I think we have so much to do. It's a great opportunity, and we can definitely leave the planet in a better place than we found it. I think within the IMechE, one of the biggest challenges I think we have, which is also one of the biggest opportunities, is that when you step back and look at it, we have 120,000 roughly members. They're highly skilled people all across the world that have amazing insights, perspectives, and very applicable skills to some of the world's biggest challenges. And I think how we can harness that is in some respects limitless. And I would love to keep promoting this idea that we can really unite that 120 and whatever that number is in the future, but reunite it as a single group. I think the possibilities are absolutely incredible, especially at a time when the world needs it the most. And I'll leave you with a fun, but maybe not so fun fact. I sound super English. I'm actually not English at all. I'm half Irish, half South African. Grew up in Cape Town and desperately wanted to be a professional golfer, but nothing always works out that smoothly. So I became an engineer, which I think that was a blessing in disguise. That's me. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. And I think we definitely benefited more than the golf fraternity by having you as an engineer. So I'm appreciative that you took that step. and I wanted to actually just comment on the excellent work you did in support of the COP26 last year. I mean, that was a really, really excellent opportunity for us to have a strong voice at the conference. I believe we did. And we're now reaping the benefits of that in areas like net zero. So just wanted to say that we had a session with Chris Skidmore, MP, who's been appointed by the government to pick up on the net zero review and roll out a proposal how it moves forward by the end of the year. And we had a session with him and a number of other people here in Birdcage Walk yesterday. And it's great that we're actually effectively having that opportunity to be really there and influencing the policies. Great. So last but not least, I'm going to say a few words about myself. So my name's Phil Peel, as I mentioned before, and I should all know now that I'm the current president of the institution. My role on Trustee Board, I've been on Trustee Board now, this is my 6th year. I joined in 2016 as the ordinary international member. And then I progressed through. I was appointed vice president, and also I took over the honorary treasurer position within the institution when we had that role. It's now effectively chair of finance board. I was then appointed as president-elect, and have dropped into the position of president for this presidential term. During the course of my time as a volunteer, I started my volunteer journey quite a few years ago now. I've been a member since the 1980s, and I was involved in the neighbourhood engineer scheme, which was actually run by the Engineering Council, but IMechE got quite heavily involved in it. Going into local schools, and I did that in the Warwickshire region, around Rugby, where I was actually based for the company that I started working for. And then I moved on to get involved in Switzerland. I moved to Switzerland 20 years ago now. So I'm actually the first president who's based outside of the UK geographically. And I work now currently for General Electric in Switzerland. But I've got involved in Switzerland when we founded the Swiss group of IMechE, about 12 years ago now. And I was initially the deputy chair, and then I took over the chairship of that, and I was in chair for the Switzerland group for I think about 5 years altogether. So that was my opportunity to then to build on my sort of very early volunteering opportunities, get involved in actually driving the Switzerland group. So we started effectively from just having a corresponding member in the country to having a committee in place supporting the round about 200 members that we had in the country at the time. And it was great fun. I mean, we organised some really interesting visits to local industry, and I think it was a really good initiative, and I was really pleased to have been actually able to take part in that. I then got involved with working with the International Strategy Board through the Europe region, and then effectively that was the point at which I decided I would go for a position on the trustee board. And really, I think it was just so I had an opportunity to get more involved in the activities of the institution. I think the institution does a fantastic piece of work for mechanical engineering globally, and I want to call that out, that we are a global organization. About 30% of our members sit outside of the UK, and I think we have a global voice that we need to maybe emphasize more in the operations that we perform. And certainly as one of my goals for this presidential year is to try to push that a little bit more strongly. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off piste here, but let me sort of bring myself back on again, and just to explain a little bit about what I do. I am, as I mentioned, I work for General Electric now. When I first started working in Rugby, it was for a company called GEC Turbine Generators. Effectively, the businesses stayed the same. It's just the names changed with various mergers and acquisitions over the last 34 years that I've been in position. My current position is I'm chief engineer for steam turbines in the steam power sector of General Electric. I've worked in the area of steam turbines the whole of my career. That's in the design and development of those machines. They're fascinating. They fascinated me from day one, and they continue to fascinate me. They are the biggest machines that we build on the planet. The turbines that we're putting into Hinkley Point C are going to be 1.6 gigawatts output each machine. It is phenomenal the amount of power that you can generate from a single machine. And they, I believe firmly, are one of the solutions working forward in terms of the answer to net zero. They're not the only answer, but I think large nuclear new build is one of the answers that will help us to drive to a carbon neutral economy. What shall I say in terms of a fun fact? Well, as I mentioned, I live in Switzerland. That has been quite a challenge in terms of getting involved in the culture and also learning the language. And what's really helped me in that is that I joined a local singing club. So I sing in Swiss German. So maybe one day you'll have an opportunity to hear it. So if I pluck up enough courage and I've maybe had a few too many beers, I might actually get to the point where that actually comes out. Let's see. But I really enjoy that. I think it's great to have an interest that sits maybe outside of what you do as your career. And I do, and I really enjoy doing that. It keeps me sane in some regards. So that's a fun fact about myself. Great. So let's. I think that concludes the run around. So I want to thank all the trustees for having shared on that. We don't have an awful lot of time, I think, for questions. I'm just having a quick look at the chat. I know some have been raised during the course of the last half an hour or so, and have been answered, I think, in the chat. But if anybody does have any additional questions they do want to raise, then please post those in there. While we wait for that, I'm just going to say that. Oh, sorry. I see there's a question coming from Chris Elliott on the groups, overseas groups. So just to answer that question quickly, Chris, while we're talking about Europe, I think you've asked the question: is there a group in Germany, France, etc.? Yes, the answer to that question is yes, there is. Within the Europe regional group, which is currently chaired by Daniel Fantoni, there are a number of country groups. So there's a group in Switzerland, France, Germany, Italy, Iberia, which covers Spain and Portugal, and there's also a Nordic group that covers, I think, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. And I'm sure I've probably missed, Benelux is also a branch that we have as well. I'm sure I've maybe missed somebody, and I have just, as I think I've missed Greece, so I'll remember Greece. If I've missed anybody, my apologies, but you can find out about who is actually in your locality by going onto the Near You sites on the webpage. That is really a very helpful vehicle to steer you in terms of who might actually be the nearest group to you, location-wise. So, yep, so Maria's just posted the link in the chat. That's great. Thanks, Maria. So I would recommend, if you want to find out whereabouts we are located, both within the UK as well as outside the UK, then have a look on Near You. Great. Let's have a quick look and see if there's any other questions that have come in. No, I don't think so. Oh. Right, so I think, Sandeep, you've raised a question about you'd like to know more about international members and how they can get involved in the IMechE. Maybe, because we've got an international vice president, I'll pass that one on to Vijay to maybe answer. So, you know, Vijay, how did you get involved as a member from an international perspective?
Well, the way I started volunteering is not something I would suggest to anyone else to do, because I became a visitor for the Benevolent Fund, and it used to take me a week to recover from each visit I made to a family in distress to assess their application. But that kept me going for 7 or 8 years, because it was a sort of it was a kind of time requirement at that time. I was very busy working, and volunteering is always giving the institution enough time for what the institution wants you to do. So the next stage was when I started helping with PRIs, and that's the professional review interview thing, where if you can spend a day or so every 3 months, then that's what the institution really needs from you. So to run the interview or even to become an interview facilitator or an advisor, industrial advisor. And that's something the institution really needs. So that's that's another way of getting involved. And then I don't know where you live, but there will be an IMechE organization for that area. And if you take a look at its activities, you can join with them. And then, as Joanna once told me when I was not very active, the institution supports everybody who wants to do anything. It's up, the initiative has to come from the bottom upwards. And once that happens, you'll find that you will get enough money and help and advice and everything else to do whatever you'd like to do. And if you are interested in any of these things, like training up young members, helping to spread knowledge and skills, you'll always find somebody in IMechE willing to help you. It's easier now that we have these electronic facilities to bring in expertise from all over the globe if necessary. We actually run events where lectures have been given entirely from the UK, and that was a first. And a first, a second, and a third actually. So there are lots of possibilities to get involved, get going, and we now have a fair system by which people join the trustee board or any of the other groups you may be interested in and the headquarters committees. That's run by NOMCO. And NOMCO makes a special point of bringing in people whom we don't know as trustees and chairs of committees and boards. We don't know anything about them. And NOMCO, by advertising and asking people, are you interested? If you are, can you give us so many days a year of your time? Gets lots of applications and requests people, even if they're not selected, to stay with us so that if we find a slot for them, we can put them into that kind of work. So there are lots of opportunities now to enter and help with IMechE.
Yeah. Thanks, Vijay, and thanks for highlighting the excellent role that NOMCO is playing in terms of actually finding new candidates for all those volunteer positions. There's a question that's been posted by Andy. Thanks for that, Andy, about how do we manage to find the time as trustees to fit everything in. And I think sometimes it's a challenge and certainly a struggle. So I'm in my presidential year. I am still working for General Electric. I think General Electric have been very kind in terms of giving me a certain amount of flexibility as to when I do the day job, but I still am having to do the day job, and I'm sure that's true for many of our other trustees as well. And fitting everything in, I think sometimes is a challenge. But for me, it's about being motivated. I want to do this. I want to be a trustee. I want to support the institution, and I think that really helps. The fact that I'm doing something that I think will have a real benefit. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear the views of some of the other trustees, maybe in terms of how they manage to fit everything in as well. Do you want to jump in? I think you already jumped in, David, on the chat, but did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, it helps to have an understanding spouse. That's the first thing. I'm in awe of those like Eleanor, who also have a family to look after. It may one of the reasons I think I didn't get so heavily involved when we had children around was simply, that places big demands on you. And I think that's true of the institution itself. I mean, if you look at the people who get involved, mostly they're either young people, who are starting their careers and who are enthusiastic, or they're old codgers like myself who are, as it were, the sort of family rearing days are behind us. So, I mean, I think we need to try and do as much as we can to make these roles accessible to people who are mid-career and do have other responsibilities. But it's a struggle sometimes, you know. You do find yourself thinking, oh gosh, I've got to read the paperwork for the Trustee Board and I'm not quite sure when I'm going to do it. Helena's got her hand up though. I'd love to hear from Helena on this one.
She has, yes, and thanks for
Yeah.
rejoining, Helena. So and it would be really great to for you to comment in terms of how you do manage it with the young kids that you've got. Yes, because it must be a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. It's definitely not easy. I think extend David's point about understanding spouses. So I talk a lot to the children about the institution, and they really care about what the institution stands for, and they want me to be doing this. So which makes it much easier when I, you know, can't take them to school or do bedtime or whatever it is because I've got a trustee board meeting. But I also have an employer who's supportive of my spending time with the institution. And I think a lot of us who work for the larger employers, you know, we get that same level of understanding and flexibility as a result of, you know, frankly, the employer benefits from prestige as a result of our being engaged in this. And in terms of our professional development, it is phenomenal. The situations and challenges and collaborations which come through sitting on the trustee board. So I think, you know, it's a win-win for the employer and the institution. And I also would say one of my, I'm going to say, coping techniques is working out where are the areas where I can add value and provide benefit and focus on those. And those areas where I don't feel like I can add value or provide benefit, or I feel are completely comprehensively covered by the rest of the trustee board colleagues, I absolutely trust and rely upon them to do their roles so that, you know, I'm not stretched so thin that I become ineffectual across all of it, but I can, you know, focus where I add that value.
Great, thanks, Helena. Vijay, did you want to jump in? I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Very quickly, Phil, I think both Helena and David have said it all. It is entirely dependent on the spouses, and this question should actually be put securely to the spouses to answer via Maria or Joan sometime, so that we know what they actually think. I know that when the pandemic started and I got stuck in London for 8 weeks, I enjoyed my stay in London, and everyone on the board tried to make my life reasonably comfortable and would call me up or tell me this or tell me that and so forth. But I really wondered how my family was coping without me. Well, they coped pretty well without me in the end, but I think it was a bit difficult for them. So it is the spouses who support us and say, okay, you want to do a stint giving your best for IMechE, go ahead. And they are the unspoken basis of saying there's always a spouse behind any successful person.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, and yeah, no, well said, Vijay. Yes, and those who actually read a copy of my presidential address will see in the dedications at the end, I basically put in some words for my family, because I think without our families and without the tremendous support that we get from our families, then, you know, we wouldn't be able to do this. And certainly my wife is very understanding in terms of all the time that I'm spending at the moment on the presidency. And I do really thank her, you know, from the bottom of my heart for that. Great. Let's, I think time-wise, we need to perhaps think about bringing everything to a conclusion. I'm just checking to see if there are any additional questions that may be in the chat that I've missed. I'm not aware that's the case. I do think I'm going to give people a last opportunity to raise any questions if they want to. Okay, so there's a few comments coming in. So Sandy, great. Yeah, we've discovered you're in Kenya. So greetings to you in Kenya. It's great to have somebody on the call who's dialing in from Kenya. Great. So just a reminder that if this session has been recorded, it will be made available to listen to later. And as all the other sessions that we've actually had during the course of the week. So I think just maybe I'm going to say some closing words now from this session, but it applies effectively to the whole of the rest of the week. So this virtual volunteer conference has taken a lot of effort to put in place. Over the course of the last 5 days, we've had, I think, a total of 16 online sessions. Each of those has taken an awful lot of organisation to put in place. I am incredibly thankful to the whole of the staff team that's actually, been working in advance and also during the course of this week to make this happen. And I do want to mention Donovan Fingenroth in particular. Donovan, you've done a great job pulling this all together against a really tight timeline, and I do want to acknowledge that and thank you for all of your efforts to make sure that this week's been the success that it has been. As I mentioned, this session has been recorded. We've recorded all of the other sessions as well. We will be, in the course of time, be making those recordings available for people to actually to be able to use. And hopefully we'll have a great resource that we can pull on going forward in terms of helping our volunteers in the activities they do. We will also be circulating feedback forms to those people who have attended, just so we can get your feedback in terms of how effective you think this has been, any tips that you may want to actually give us with regard to how we could potentially improve going forward. And we'll review those and we'll hopefully take those on board if we organise effectively a follow-up. And I think and hope that we will do that at some point in the future. Finally, I want to thank all of our volunteers. I mean, we would not be able to function as an institution the way that we do without the volunteers that we have, who put a tremendous amount of time and effort into the work that they do in support of the institution. And I think, that you do it because, like us, you have a passion for wanting to promote engineering and see us fulfilling our mission to improve the world through engineering. So I am very, very thankful to all of you for that. Continue to do the excellent work that you do. Continue also to encourage other people in the institution to come in and volunteer as well. We need volunteers. We will always need volunteers. So this is a bit of a push for us to promote volunteering in the institution and just share with people how much you get out of it, how much you enjoy it, and how much you feel that they would benefit from doing it as well. So I think on that note, I'm going to close. Wish you all a good rest of the day and also a good weekend, and look forward to you joining a future IMechE event in due course. So thanks very much, everybody, and goodbye.